Fighting Big Pharma by taking control of our own health. This was the subject of our live Q&A session with our special guest, Eric Edmeades, who recently joined us on the podcast and again within our private community sessions within the Elevate network. If you're watching this for the first time, then every single month we host private conversations with our podcast guests within the Elevate network for our supporter program members, bringing you access to world-class experts, exploring the issues of our time, but also looking at how we can create personal and social transformation. This topic was an important one for us to address, looking at how we can take full control of our own health freedom, our own health sovereignty, to become the healthiest versions of ourselves. Because after all, the best way to reduce the dominance of Big Pharma is to remove access to the demand, which is created by ill health. So if we can maximize our own health, vitality, and energy through our nutrition, our diet, our fitness, our mindfulness, etc., then we start to really reclaim our own health. And this was the subject of our Q&A, where many of our members had some really fascinating questions to ask, which you'll see within the course of this Q&A session. Eric Edmeades, if you're not familiar, he is the founder of Wildfit. He is actually a businessman and entrepreneur by background, but throughout his entire entrepreneurial career, fitness and health have been at the backbone of his work, and food in particular has been a guiding passion, which led him to begin the journey of Wildfit, where now he's influenced the lives of tens of thousands of people around the world and help people to radically transform their health. So you have the opportunity to learn from Eric, his hard-hitting, real talk within this powerful conversation. So enjoy. Look forward to getting your feedback on the Q&A session. And if you'd like to take part in a future session like this with our guests, we have frequent sessions, and we've got Matthias Desmet coming up within the next couple of weeks, Helena Norborg-Hodge. We've got a special deep dive introduction to cryptocurrency and the financial reset also coming up. If you'd like to participate in these sessions, then join us as a supporter within the Elevate network at weareelevate.org, and you can be in the room with us at one of our next sessions. So I hope you enjoy this session with Eric Edmeades, and I hope to see you and meet you at a future session. Enjoy. I was just recounting when I first met Eric, and we can't quite identify the date, but we estimate it was probably around a decade ago. I used to be part of an organization in the UK called the Yes Group. Anyone familiar with the Yes Group in the UK by show of hands? There's a few people nodding heads. Yeah, cool. Okay. So the Yes Group put on monthly motivational events across the UK. There are some international chapters as well. I originally was part of the committee in Bristol, and then eventually chaired the group in Bristol. But Eric came along to give a talk on business freedom at the time, tonight talking about health and food freedom. But Eric came to give a talk about business freedom, and literally Eric turned up. I've never met a speaker that turned up so cool. He had this, I'm pretty sure he had a leather jacket on, Eric. I mean, just turning up looking like a movie star, dynamite accent. And then we went for dinner, had a beautiful talk. And I knew that Eric was so into health and fitness. I'd done my research, and I went to the bar and I thought, what am I going to order at the restaurant? Because I want to keep in sync with the healthy vibe. And I'm pretty sure I ordered something that was healthier than what Eric ordered that night. It was really good to meet Eric that evening. He gave a mind-blowing talk on business freedom. He is one of the most incredible speakers I've ever witnessed. And he was just sharing the story about how he got started just before we joined here in his speaking career. And it's really unfolded at great speed and with real gravitas. Eric has now shared the stage with luminaries such as Sir Richard Branson, Jack Canfield, John Gray, Robin Sharma, Tony Robbins, Bill Clinton. He's spoken over 10,000 hours on stage, well over 20 countries around the world on topics around food, health, fitness, human performance, business. And it's just been amazing to get to know Eric over the years. He's done some amazing work over the course of the pandemic. And those of you who would have heard our podcast interview, it was really fascinating to hear the impact that Eric's work has had on people's lives when it comes to their health and their fitness. And a lot of people have been drawn to what we've done over the last couple of years because we pushed back against the systemic challenges. And Eric has also done that in his own way. And his work really does push against big pharma and big food to try and reduce the dominance. We've kind of positioned tonight's event to talk about how we can actually push back against big pharma dominance by taking control and taking full agency of our own health. So tonight's a real opportunity for you to learn from someone who really walks the talk and has a rich experience across a whole range of areas, everything from the mindset and psychology of how we interrelate with our health and food, the practical side of fitness and nutrition, but a whole range of other faculties as well. So I would suggest that your questions, there'll be no limits to your questions tonight. I've seen Eric in these types of environments before, and he's always got something fascinating to say and great pearls of wisdom. So I encourage you to be bold this evening, ask the questions that are important to you, but also get personal. You know, if you're dealing with a particular health challenge or fitness challenge and you want insights on how to move forward, be brave and bring it to the table, because you know, we're all dealing with different situations. I shared in my video earlier tonight that, you know, the last couple of years I've lost fitness, I've lost strength. Prior to the pandemic, I was in the gym every single day, and when the gyms closed down, I was still training. Someone's just muted me. Without the gear, it became very difficult, and I'm only starting to recover. So I'm sure we've all got our own story over the last couple of years, but tonight's your opportunity to ask questions and dive in. Eric, I'd like to give you the mic first and foremost, just to kind of give just some opening thoughts, really, for people to think about. You've done so much great work with Wildfit program. You've influenced people all around the world. You know, we spoke at length over the course of our podcast episode about the impact of the food industry and the impact over institutions and how this affects the way that we make food choices. It'd just be really interesting for you to kind of set a bit of a scene around your current thinking around the future of health, food, and fitness, and you know, the impact that the pandemic has created upon people's mindset around health.
Sure. The first thing I just want to check in with you, are you suggesting that the locking you down and not allowing you to go to the gym and trapping you in your house with Netflix and junk food might not have been the best thing for your immune system? Is that, I got the feeling you might have been saying that.
Well, I was, but you know, there'll be someone on Twitter that says we need a double-blind placebo study to verify that.
to verify that the average person putting on 1 stone of weight in 5 months is not good. We need a double-blind study. Hey guys, first, Dan, thanks so much for having me. You guys, I'm really glad to be here. Whenever I have the opportunity to connect with people and talk about optimization of health and basically quality of life, I'm always interested in doing that. So some of you guys will know that I lived in the UK for about 10 years, and just right at the end of that period of time is when we connected way back. And my real sort of background has actually been business. I started a mobile computing, wireless networking, a company, and I started it in Bristol, in a little town called Rington, just outside Bristol. And I moved it down to Weston-super-Mare because land was so much cheaper there. And I ran that business for about 10 years. My clients are people, those of you who are in the UK, you'll know Debenhams, JD Sports, and United Airlines, and a bunch of other logistics companies, TNT and so forth in the UK. And underneath it all, whenever I was running a business, and I've run several businesses in a variety of industries, the primary driver of my curiosity and the primary driver of my passion was about optimal health. It was about having a good relationship with food and a good relationship with my body. And so there came a point about 10 years ago where I decided to switch gears and really focus on bringing that to the world, and no longer having it be a hobby, but actually having it be a mission. And so in one way to put it is that I gave myself 3 major gifts as a young man. The one gift was understanding of business and entrepreneurship, and that gave me economic freedom. The other gift I gave myself was understanding communication and public speaking, and that allowed me to get my ideas out to the world. And the third gift I gave myself was an outstanding relationship with health, with food, with exercise, with my body, and that gave me the energy to make things happen. And I'll say this one last thing and then open the floor to truly AMA. Ask me anything you want, and if I don't have an answer, I'll brainstorm a way of finding the answer for you. But when people often ask me this, they ask me this question like, Eric, what's your #1 business tip? to be successful in business. And I will, oh, and my number one tip to be phenomenally successful in business is to have a great relationship with food in your body so that you have the energy to be productive. That's my number one business tip. Oh, okay. What's your number one parenting tip? Oh, parenting. Number one parenting tip: to have a great relationship with food and your body so that you have the energy to be a phenomenal parent and so that you have the longevity to be able to play with your grandchildren. That's my number one parent. What number one relationship tip? My number one relationship tip is to have a fantastic relationship with food and your body so that you can be at your optimal best and have stable moods and be the best possible partner you could be. If you're picking up a trend here, then maybe you get a sense of who I am and what I believe in and so on. So Dan, if you want to take it from there, I'm up for town hall. Ask me anything.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm just going to try and make my way back to the main screen and gallery view here. I've just managed to get myself lost in a field of screens. So as you will know, if you've been with us over the last few months doing these calls, we'll take questions from the crowd, and there's a couple of ways we'll do that. So you can either hit the reaction button and press the raise hand, so you can raise your digital hand. Alternatively, you can ask your question in the chat, and I'll arrange for you to come on the screen so that we can bring you up and speak with Eric. So any question tonight goes. And what would be quite nice, we were reflecting on the last session with Charles Eisenstein, if you have a follow-on comment or question to kind of lead to a continuation of a subject, please do also add that, because there's some really interesting opportunities to kind of continue the discussion and expand. So if you have any points you'd like to expand upon and answer, then also feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat. So we've already got a couple of people raising their hand. Moon, I'd like to come to you first. I'm going to give you the mic and bring you up here with us.
I'm muted. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hi, Dan. Hi, Eric. Hi, everybody. The question I have is about cholesterol. Something about what Dan said. I found, like so many people, all my work as a coach, it was face-to-face, and then it shifted to being online. And I found myself almost getting a headache and, what I call cabin fever, and having to get out. So that was in sort of 2020, 2021. I really made a push to go out for a walk 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, 3, or wherever I felt. But in this year, something has changed. So maybe sort of latter part of last year, I found myself, the weight was going up. I was still walking, but not as much. And I have an issue with a lower disc that pops and kept popping, probably because I was sitting a lot. I had a blood test. I had some checkups, eventually got through to see the doctor. And my cholesterol was registered as high. And I knew what would happen. They would want to put me on statin, a horrible medication. I know that because I had a TIA back in 2017. And, I felt sick. I got them to take me off it the very next day. So I did speak to the doctor. The doctor was extremely cross with me and said, why have you waited 4 months? What I did was I gave myself a chance, and I changed my diet, started walking and getting out, doing qigong, blah, blah, blah. So I had another test done, and it's only slightly elevated now. But they still wanted to put me on statin, and I said no. I said I will do it through lifestyle. So they're going to check me again in 3 months. And I'm doing a lot of raw. I'm a vegetarian, so I do eat fish, and I'm just really trying to help myself. And I don't have a thyroid because my goiter was removed. So my weight is only just starting to come down. I've put on a stone from last year, this point to this point, and it's really been struggling to take it off. But that's the question about naturally dealing with cholesterol to keep myself in good health without taking the nasty medication, which I'm not going to take anyway.
Sure. Okay. So that could be a much longer conversation. I'm going to shortcut a little bit. I'm going to recommend that you read a book called The Big Fat Surprise, and by Nina, and I can't think of her last name right now, but it is a tour de force. And basically she's an investigative journalist who wrote, if I understand the story correctly, she wrote an article about the diet industry generally. And then a publisher came to her and said, wow, that is so well argued and so well taken a look at. We'd like you to deep dive into the fat industry. And so the book is actually about investigative reporting and the fat industry and how the low fat movement was foisted upon us in order to do things like sell statins and so forth.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that you read that book. And then after that, I generally recommend that just don't even look at the cholesterol numbers anymore. They are being used to sell statins, and your instinct, in my opinion, this is not medical advice. I'm not a priest, a doctor, or a financial advisor, but I agree with your feeling about statins, and my feeling is that you can do it with lifestyle. Now I have to ask you the tough question. And this is okay. So you're a vegetarian. So what that technically means is that you don't have meat, but but you do eat fish. So you're really kind of properly pescatarian, I suppose. But
That's
you
it,
also,
pescatarian. That's the one. Yes.
Did you say pescatarian? Okay.
No, I didn't, but I'm saying it now. I'm a pescatarian. That's it.
Can I ask you, what is the reasoning behind not eating meat? I'm just curious, because I was a vegetarian for many years. In fact, I think around the time, Dan, when you met me, I think I may still even have been vegetarian at that stage. So I'm asking from personal curiosity.
Okay, I was a chef. I was a professional chef, and I worked in the city. And I went on a vegetarian and vegan course. And I noticed the quality of meat that was coming into the workplace, especially as I was doing fine dining, was very poor. When I went on this wonderful training in Manchester many, many years ago, it put me off. And I would often send back meat because it was just in a poor state. That led me to delve into health for myself. So I've been on a health journey, and I was a fitness fanatic for many years. And I didn't do it automatically overnight. It was a gradual process. You know, I've done many ways of doing health, juicing, etc., not full raw, and so on over the years. So that's
right. I want to say this, and I apologize for any of you who are vegetarian or vegan. I generally don't have this conversation until I've gotten to know people very well, because it's like talking politics and religion, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to say that, first of all, there is not a single vitamin, mineral, amino acid, or fat that is not 100% available in animal products. Not one. There's not one vitamin, not one mineral, not one amino acid, not one fat that you can't get by eating meat, fish, and eggs. That is not true of any vegetables. It is fundamentally there's not one vegetable that has everything. With meat products, it is the most nutritionally complete food there is. But you are 100% right that the majority of the meat that's on offer for us today is not the best quality. So it means, but you need to be careful. But that's no less true of vegetables. It's no less true of fruits and vegetables. So we have a farming problem. So I just want to say this, that in the book that I just mentioned to you, I'm going to give you an example of one of the reasons that we've been taught that that meat's so bad for us. First of all, China is a net importer of American beef. Yeah. China is a net exporter of pea protein, so Americans can make fake meat and eat fake meat. Think about how much money is going into marketing the idea that you should eat fake meat so we can buy the Chinese exported pea proteins and then send our beef to them so they can eat the real stuff. I don't think it's such a good idea. No. And so I want to say this, that Ansel Keys was let's say a food scientist who was maybe the most influential person in the development of the low-fat industry and the vegetarian movement. And to give you an idea of how unethical he was and how fundamentally dishonest he was and how deep his ego was involved in this, he went to Greece, and he went to a Greek island. And he went to this Greek island, I think it was Crete, because it was they were like a blue zone. They had huge numbers of people that were living into their past 100 years old. They were like, this is amazing. So they went there and they took food samples from what people were eating, and they sent the food samples back to America to be broken down into their macro constituents. What were they eating? We needed to know. These people live a long time. We need to know what they're eating, man. So they found out something about these Greeks. They ate no saturated fat, and they ate no meat, and they ate no dairy products, and they ate no fish and no eggs. They ate none. And that study changed the world. It was only later that it turned out that those food samples were extracted from those people during the 2 weeks of Lent, the only 2 weeks of the year that they don't eat those things. And on that island, there is an expression that when you see somebody who looks sallow and they're pale and they're a little yellowy in the eyes, and you call them lentish, you acknowledge the fact that they look lentish, because guess what? They're not eating enough saturated fat, which is unbelievably important for your health. And they're not getting enough amino acids. It's not protein you need, it's amino acids. And they're not getting enough of those things, and it's harming them. And he unethically failed to disclose that he took the samples during that one window and caused us all to question the value of meat in our diets. So
Right.
I want to suggest to you that one of the things you can do to improve your weight release, you see, one of the reasons it's difficult to lose weight, this is an irony, but if you are starving, your body won't release weight. So if you are missing key nutrients, your body will just, I'm not letting anything go, man. I'm not letting it, I'm not. And that's why the diet industry doesn't work. The diet industry comes along, it takes the average person who is low on nutrients and then asks them to restrict their calories further. Then their body's like, hell no, I'm not letting go of my fat. Why would I do that when I'm starving to death? One of the very best ways to stimulate the release of weight is to load yourself on nutrition. And so I want to challenge you to consider that. You live in the UK?
Yes.
You can get venison, you can get locally ostrich, you can get bison, you can get grass-fed, proper organic free-range beef. If you're lamb, there are options. And I'm going to suggest that you maybe be willing to be flexitarian instead of ideological.
Oh my. I do.
I know. You didn't come here for the light stuff.
I do have the vegetables though. I've been in this period to keep our community going. I have been buying the fruit and vegetable from the farmers market, and I have to say it is not what you get in the supermarket. So I believe the way that it's grown, it's more soil rich.
Yeah.
So
and
definitely
the same is true with meat, fish, and eggs. Is if there are three reasons. There are three pillars of veganism, vegetarianism. Three pillars. Pillar number one, health. Absolutely flawed and incorrect. No question about it. In fact, you can be prosecuted for not feeding your children animal products because it causes malnutrition and serious health defects in many countries. Like the health pillar is a fraud. There's no science to back it up. It's wrong. The other two pillars are it's better for the environment. And there's an animal rights pillar. Now, the animal rights pillar is a tough one to argue. I hate the idea that anything has to die for us to eat it. I'm just going to say that, if dung beetles, dung beetles are these cute little beetles from Africa, and they eat dung. What if we told them how gross that was? What if one day we said, we think eating shit is like gross. And by the way, it's an extreme violation of privacy. Can you imagine how would you feel if you found somebody was eating your poop? Just doesn't feel right at all. So we convinced the dung beetles that they should ignore their evolutionary history and stop eating shit. And you know what would happen to them? They would die. So the fact that animal products have been part of human consumption for millions and millions of years has a consequence. But what we can do, instead of arguing about whether something has to live or die, because everything is going to die, we can argue about its quality of life. And that I think we can work on, and that we can agree on. Now, the environmental pillar is the most important one to consider. It is absolutely incorrect that meat farming is bad for the environment. Now, like every great lie, it's built upon a truth. Feedlot meat farming is bad for the environment, just like hothouse farming of tomatoes is. You see, it's not the crop that determines the damage to the environment. It's the method of farming that determines it. In Mexico, you guys all heard about all the forests. They're deforesting Brazil for beef. This is true. This is a problem. But what you didn't hear is that 25% of the deforestation of Mexico is for avocados.
Yeah, I heard about
it's for avocados. And that's because it's a deplorable method of farming. So I'm here to suggest that, first of all, don't worry about cholesterol numbers. Secondly, maybe reconsider your flexible approach to your sources of amino acids and healthy fats, because that will really help your numbers and help your health overall, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Muna, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for starting with the good stuff. Right in there. Let's go right in there.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Eric. And I made an ingest comment at the beginning about courageous spaces. And I know within our community, we will have people who are vegetarians and vegans, and maybe even on this call, and that Eric's response may have caused a reaction within you. But I think what we've got here is we do want to create the space for open and bold conversations. We're seeing in the world around us, we're shying away from these conversations because of fear of conflict or upsetting one another. This is an opportunity to have healthy conversation about healthy habits where we can agree and disagree based upon our own beliefs and practices. But yes, that is like the politics card. It's like, let's bring out Labour versus Conservatives while we're at it. Yes, but very, very. I love the way you handled that, Eric, and really.
And I just want to add. I want to add one more thing about that.
Please.
Some of you guys will know I'm the founder of a company called Wildfit, and we do health transformation coaching. We've had over 50,000 clients in 100 countries around the world. I want you to know I was shocked to go on Facebook and find that there's a group called Wildfit for Vegetarians, and there's thousands of people in there. I am not against you being a vegetarian. I am for supporting you in choosing your food the way you want to choose it. I just want you to be aware that to do it, there are consequences. And so I am not ideological. I don't want anybody to be, because here's what I know about food. If you become ideological about your diet, then you will allow your health to die at the foot of your ideology. And so instead, what I want to do is be practical about the way diet works. And so we have thousands of clients that are vegetarians, and we support them in that journey if that's the journey they want to go on. We also challenge them to not be ideological about it. So anyway.
I love that challenge. And I think many of us will know the consequences of being ideological and dogmatic. I've witnessed what we've witnessed the last couple of years and some of the subjects that we've talked about for 2 years straight. Good, thank you. So where should we go next? Joe, I think you were next. Can I bring you up to chat with Eric?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hello everybody. Hello, Eric. Thank you this evening. Really interesting. My question kind of runs in a little bit more. We've spoken a lot, and you did with your podcast with Dan about individual responsibility for our health, and I think that's really important. And for me, one aspect that I'm sort of struggling with is to do with thyroid, hyperthyroidism through Hashimoto's, which means basically I've got to take pharmaceutical products. And I really want to start looking at alternative ways of dealing with that. And just wondered if you had any input around that, really.
Yeah, I have two answers for you. The one is there's a principle that I'm writing about at the moment. I have a book coming out about this, and it's called the evolution gap. And the evolution gap pushes forward a theory that suggests that human evolution, which moves very slowly over time, usually works in relationship with the environment. So as a really good example, if somebody has very, very dark skin, then we know that they have spent more of their evolutionary time likely in the central parts of Africa. But if their skin is lighter, it means that they are from farther south in the southern hemisphere or farther north in the northern hemisphere. And we know that that's the case. So now that itself is not any kind of a problem. Where it has become a problem is if you take somebody who is like, evolutionarily from Nigeria and you move them to Norway, they suffer health consequences. But equally, Joe, if we take you and move you to Nigeria, you better be damn careful of that sun, because your skin is not as prepared for that sun as the Nigerian is. So the evolution works very, very slowly. And because humans used to move very slowly, their skin color would slowly adjust to get to the right color for the area they were living in. Now we can just get on a plane and fly to somewhere and burn our skin, right? Like instantly. Yeah. And that is the gap. The gap is evolution is technological change that is faster than our ability to cope with it. And what I want to suggest to you is that the vast majority of what we consider chronic health diseases, including many autoimmune diseases like the thyroid issues you're describing, are the result of this gap. They are the result of two problems: a general problem with nutrition, that is too much of the bad stuff, not enough of the good stuff, and this is the part everybody misses, is a lack of seasonal cycling. Now, this is a very important thing, but your thyroid and your pancreas and a number of the organs in your body evolved not only to get you to survive different seasonal conditions, but they also evolved to utilize those different seasonal conditions. So, for example, when it's fall, traditionally, I'm not talking about fall in England, I'm talking fall in sub-Saharan Africa, where humans spent most of our time evolving. When it's fall, there are a lot of carbohydrate foods available. So what are we eating? Root vegetables, fruits, honey. We're eating a lot of carbohydrates, and our pancreas goes, oh, I know what's coming next. Winter's coming next. And so the pancreas helps the body to process that sugar and turn it into fat and prepare you for that winter. But when the winter is over and the season changes, then those organs switch. And the body switches and says, now I don't need to carry this extra weight around. I can let it go. And so humans have traditionally put on a little weight in the fall, then they've let their go. By the way, I don't know why we don't all know this, because squirrels and chipmunks and bears do it all the time. We know they do it. We just forget that we do it too. But the trouble for most of us, Joe, is that we live in a world where most of us are trapped in a permanent fall, and because we eat carbs all the time. And worse than that, we're trapped in something called junk food fall because of hobnobs and other things along those lines, right? So what I want to suggest to you is that, yes, it can be improved. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not offering medical opinion. I'm not suggesting that you can be cured. What I'm going to tell you is that anecdotally, I have had thousands of people do our programs. And one of the most common things we hear from people that started with thyroid dysfunction is that their thyroid has started operating normally, and or also commonly that they've been able to get off their thyroid support medication, and or that they've been able to reduce it dramatically under medical supervision. So I am of the firm belief that resetting your relationship with food, which means reducing the level of non-functional, improving the level of functional, but then adding the third piece that nobody seems to really get, and that is proper seasonal rotation through the metabolic states that your body needs to run through in the course of a year. I think you can turn things around.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. I certainly will have a look at that, because it is something that I want to try and achieve, really. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for that, Joe and Eric. I've got a follow-on point which I'll hold just to give everyone else the space, but maybe later on we'll talk about leaky gut. But Russell, you are next up in line.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Hello, Eric. Thank you for joining us again. It's really excited about having you on the broadcast tonight. So I don't want to make it about me, but I have 2 autoimmune conditions, which I developed after having viral pancreatitis in 2007, the macrothrombocytopenia or pancytopenia and hyperchlorhydria, which leaves me dependent on medications, which I desperately want to get off, even though I work in the pharmaceutical industry for my sins. So how successful can you be at eating your way out of autoimmune conditions?
Well, that's a wide open question, of course. You know, and because there are countless autoimmune conditions, one would argue, for example, the type 1 diabetes may well be the result of an autoimmune condition, or is really an autoimmune condition in some cases, and it's not reversible by any method of diet change that we know of. It can be improved and it can be managed better, but we don't believe that it's reversible at this stage. So it's a wide open question, but I'll take it with the spirit of, let's say, is it possible to reverse some autoimmune conditions? And if so, how likely is it and what would have to happen? First of all, let's have a really rudimentary discussion about an autoimmune condition. So Russell, imagine you and I, it's like 1742 and we've built a wooden fort on the banks of the Severn, and we've built our wooden fort. And so our immune system is the wall and the moat and our ability to drop tar off the front when people try and come in through the front gateway. We've got archers at the top that can, you know, so that's our immune system, right? Now, if we see enemies coming, we're going to shoot arrows at them when they're quite far away. We're going to socially distance from them, but we're going to pour tar on them if they get really close. But what are we going to do if termites get into the wood? What are we going to do? Oh, I think I lost Russell. Are you muted somehow?
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection's a bit unstable.
Gotcha. What are we going to do?
You're going to try and treat the termites in the wood, which are there close at hand. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is that we're going to have to attack the wood.
Correct.
Right? We're going to have to attack the wood. Our immune system is going to have to start attacking the fort. That is how many, in my opinion, how many autoimmune diseases work, is that something has gotten through and in, and the immune system is now trying to fight that thing. And it's a scorched earth policy. It's like, it's you speaking of leaky gut, the wrong things have gotten through the digestive process, and the body's like, I don't want those lectins in here. And it starts attacking them. And so it's attacking the digestive lining, and we call it an autoimmune disease, but it's really just the body trying to burn the section of the fort that has the wrong stuff in it. And so now I know this is a massive oversimplification, but I believe that it's an accurate metaphor for many autoimmune conditions. So what I've seen over the past 10 years working with people is that when they recalibrate their relationship with food, and they stop putting in the foods that are irritating their system, and they start putting in the foods that will support their defense system, when they start moving their body effectively, and they create metabolic seasonality, that many autoimmune diseases can be actually reversed or at least dramatically improved.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I've been on exclusion diets for that very purpose, actually, and identified some of the things that are causing that, or at least exacerbating it.
So one of the challenges with the typical exclusion diet is that you almost have to do it the other way around. Like if you're going to run an exclusion diet really, really effectively, what you really have to do is fully fast and then add things back one at a time. And if you think about it, yeah, well, that is a fairly effective way to do it. But again, I know I've pushed the buttons of a few vegetarians here. I'm just going to say this. There is nothing more nutrient dense than a piece of liver or a piece of meat. There's nothing more nutrient dense. And also, there is nothing easier to digest. It is the easiest thing for your body to digest. I'll prove it to you. I know that that's not the vegan sort of propaganda version of this, but I saw a big article the other day that the Forks and Knives blogs was publishing. It was like, vegans poop more than meat eaters. Yeah, that's because their food has less stuff in it that's usable. So they end up pooping a lot of it out. Like if you eat broccoli, and I love broccoli, but let's be really clear, there's a bunch of cellulose in it that I'm going to have to poop out. And so what I'm trying to say is that when somebody eats a piece of meat, their body uses 99% of it, and nothing about that meat is actually attacking you. Let me explain that more. My dad, who recently published a book on human migration and probably knows more about human history and human migration around the planet than 10 other people on earth. And one day he saw what I was doing with Wildfit, and he asked me a really important question. He said, Eric, he says, on Wildfit, you tell people that they should not eat New World plants because we haven't had a long enough evolutionary relationship with them, but yet you tell people that it's okay for them to eat New World animals. And he says, I think that's an inconsistency and I want to understand it better. So here's the answer, which by the way, he accepted as a good answer. Animals defend themselves largely physically from predation. They run, they fight, they scratch, they bite, they use camouflage. They use physical things to defend themselves. Some use some biochemical defenses like skunks, for example, but mostly it's physical. Once you have killed the animal, the meat is not attempting to defend itself in any way. It's just nutrient-dense material for you to eat. Every plant you've ever eaten, with one exception, and I'll talk about that in a minute, every plant you've ever eaten is also defending itself against predation. Plants don't want to be eaten. They are also fighting, and they fight with things like tannins. They fight with caffeine. They fight with lectins. They fight with hormone triggers and enzyme blockers. They fight the digestive process. So when you're eating a plant, even though the plant might have good stuff in it, the plant is also fighting you. And meat doesn't ever do that. So another form of a, let's say, elimination diet that you might consider is, instead of going so hardcore with fasting, is that you move to a period of what we call in Wildfit hunter spring, or a period of carnivorism, where you eat only meat, fish, and eggs for, say, a week or 10 days. That's all. No vegetables of any kind. I know this goes against common, but you go only that, and then you add back vegetables, but you only add back what we consider to be old world vegetables. You do not add back any vegetables from the Americas. Why not? Because humans only reached, I'm sorry, let me be very clear. Your DNA only reached the Americas for the first time 400 years ago, which means any plant that comes from the Americas is brand new to your digestive system, and you're not good at it. Nightshade plants, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, your body doesn't know what to do with those things. So what I would recommend is that you go into a period of, say, hunter spring, we call it fit, and after 10 days, you can add back old world things like, say, a little bit of broccoli here or there, some carrots here or there. You add those things back in slowly and see which ones are irritating you. And I would be shocked if you didn't immediately, like I'm telling, within weeks, see real serious positive results. I think I lost you on sound, but I got the head nod.
Thank you, Russell, and good to have you here. Just on a personal anecdote, I suffered with autoimmune diseases of various kinds through my life. I suffered with psoriasis pretty much until I was about 18 years old, aggressively. Had diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 21. suffered awfully of all those things, but made a recovery by making radical shifts in my nutrition. And actually interesting, for the first time hearing what you just said, Eric, about nightshades, they were one of the trigger foods for me. Yeah, big time.
Of course they were.
As was excess sugar, excess caffeine. And funny enough, non-food related, quitting my sucky corporate job, which caused me great stress, was another major resolving factor, eliminating stress.
Yeah.
Who would have thought it? Sylvia, I'm going to come to you next. You asked a question in the chat. I'm going to bring you up.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Hi, Eric. Thanks so much for this evening. Really, really interesting discussion. I feel a little bit of a fraud because I'm feeling really healthy at the moment. I retired 3 years ago from Pfizer, and since then I've been on a mission to continuously improve my fitness. None of us are getting any younger, and I just think that, the more I can keep moving, the more I can eat well, all of that good stuff. So I've got a plan and it's kind of being implemented. So that's the good news. My question to you, Eric, is about, you mentioned the word with the last person, inconsistency. And that's kind of a bit like my middle name, because I'm going through a bout of healthy living at the moment. Right there, it's great. But it's a bout of healthy living. It's not consistent. So my question is, has there ever been a time for you when you've experienced that inconsistency? And if there has, what do you do to bring yourself back on track? It's about that really, because, and I suppose just to throw in a little bit more, so I do eat healthily, all of the stuff that you've been talking about in terms of, balanced diet. I exercise regularly 6 days a week. My Achilles heels, if you like, are bread. I love the stuff, so carbs, love them. Processed veggie stuff and vegan stuff, future burgers, all that. Excuse my language, guys, shit, but I like it. And alcohol at weekends. So,
right. So Sylvia, this is all good stuff. First of all, the myth of consistency is like, people often, I get on podcasts and they're like, well, Eric, what's the perfect breakfast? Well, that question displays a fundamental lack of understanding of natural ecosystems. Because if you are living in nature, there is no consistent, everyday, perfect breakfast that you could possibly have, because Mother Nature changes the food availability through the year. So there is no such thing as consistency. If you eat kale every day, it is terrible for you. Consistent consumption of kale is bad. Occasional consumption, okay, if you want, but unnecessary. Consistent. But by the way, if you eat kale every day, and by kale, what I mean is kale and any of the other cruciferous vegetables, if you eat them every day, you are almost certainly going to have sleep problems and you're going to develop muscle cramps, because eating those vegetables consistently blocks your uptake of magnesium, which is going to lead to magnesium deficiency, which is going to cause other health impacts, the most visible and immediate of which are sleep problems and muscle cramps. So let's not worry so much about consistency, but let's worry about something else. Let's think about it like this. In Wildfit, we talk about there being 4 categories of food. Category 1 is the essential foods that you really need to be eating, right? And that just comes from, say, evolutionary biology. We know categorically what humans have been eating for the last 200,000 years. We know that. There's no mystery about it. You don't need to go to PubMed. You don't need the latest Harvard study. We know it because the archaeological record on it is so very clear. We've been eating seasonally available fruits, vegetables, some nuts and seeds, and meat, fish, eggs, and poultry. That's it. Those are the things that fall into the category of essential. Then you have another category below that, which is like non-essential, but maybe not bad. And I would say that, the large GMO fruit that we eat today, and by the way, it's all GMO. Don't get caught up in thinking that your apple is not GMO. Anybody who's my age or older, show me how big was a strawberry when you were a little boy or a little girl. Somebody show me that. How big was a strawberry when you were a little boy or a little girl? My age or older. Yeah. How big's a strawberry now? It's like a mango. Let's say, what's going on with strawberries, right? That's a different form of genetic modification called selective breeding, which is genetic modification. So Now apples and mangoes and watermelons have way more sugar in them than they ever had before. So we wouldn't call them essential. Avocados, we wouldn't call them essential because they come from South America. Humans have been living without them for millions of years. So we clearly don't need them. Then you have another category, and that category is what you would call like occasional foods that you know are non-functional. So it's something, you know, like some of you might like, here's an example. I very rarely eat popcorn because I know it's terrible for skin and I know it's not good for your health and what have you. Very rarely do I eat popcorn, but it's in that category. I know it's not good for me, but I do that occasionally. Then there's another category, and this is a category called I don't go there. And by the way, in Wildfit, we don't tell you what goes there. Wildfit is about freedom, man. We're not here to tell you. I'll tell you this. Coca-Cola should be there, but it's up to you. I'm not here to tell you, you know, and so here's, Sylvia, what you want to start working on, in my opinion, is consistently figuring out how to put your focus on 1 and 2. Put your focus on 1 and 2, allow 3 from time to time, and experiment with yourself to determine what should be in category 4. And just don't go there anymore. Just don't go there. And if you do that, you won't need to worry about, you won't need to worry about this idea of consistency, because here's the thing. And Sylvia, this is so very important. The diet industry is so flawed that I could do an entire workshop on how it's flawed. I'll give you some clear examples. 1, take people who are nutritionally empty anyway and get them to restrict their calories. That's called starving. They're going to binge. Same issue with them. They're already starving. You get them to restrict their calories. Now their body thinks they're starving and their body won't release weight because a starving body doesn't want to release weight. It's a flawed. Oh, how about this? Set up a bunch of rules. Don't do this. Then make people feel shame when they do it. Well, shame is a food trigger. So, I mean, how about another one? Don't do this. Well, you know what? We all have the inner rebel and we all release serotonin and dopamine when we break rules. So you go on a diet, one of the best ways to release serotonin and dopamine is to eat the donut they told you not to eat. Like, the diet industry is broken, but here's the biggest thing it's broken about. The focus on the diet industry is to get you to give up your favorite foods. What I want to do is suggest that the focus should be to eat more of the good stuff. That's it. If you still want to eat some of the bad stuff from time to time, I'll tell you guys, I was in an airport with my girlfriend. We were traveling through Dubai a little while ago and they had a Cinnabon there. I haven't had a Cinnabon in 20 years. I just don't eat stuff like that. But my girlfriend's never had a Cinnabon. And she asked, what's all the fuss about a Cinnabon? I go, all right, we can have one. And we ate my first Cinnabon in like 20 years. Have I had another one? Hell no. No way am I doing that. I ate it. I was like, the truth is, I don't eat sweet stuff. It was gross. But you know what? What I'm saying is Wildfit is not dogmatic and it's not here to make you feel bad when you do stuff. What we're here to say to you is that if you put your focus on eating enough of the good stuff, that's your consistency. Then you don't have to worry about the occasional inconsistency that you wanted to go have a piece of dark chocolate. Why not? Enjoy it. Does that make sense?
A load of sense. Thank you so much.
And Sylvia, there's one more thing I want to say about this. Just to prove my point, if we take a human being and we put them in a controlled environment, a total controlled environment, and they eat no bad food at all, none. They eat only good food, all the best stuff. But we remove the vitamin C from the food they're eating. We take it, liver has a lot of vitamin C in it. We take it out of their liver. We take it out of their citrus foods. What's going to happen to that person? They're going to get sick and then they're going to die, having never eaten a bar one, having never dipped a hobnob, having never eaten fish and chips. They're going to die. The focus has to be on getting enough of the good stuff. You do that, your body's incredibly forgiving about the occasional inconsistency.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, good stuff. So Stephen's been patiently waiting. So Stephen, I'm going to bring you up next, if that's cool with you. Good to see you. Just still on mute at the minute, so I'm just going to get you to unmute. There we go.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hi, yeah. I'm 73. I've been a vegetarian since 74. I occasionally have a piece of fish. I'm from Grimsby, a fishing port. I'm not sure about the word ideological about diet. What's that got? I'm a vegetarian in 1974 when I was in America hitchhiking around. And I've been a Buddhist for the last 30 years or more, even more. I don't understand your word ideological. For me, I'm a vegetarian because I don't want to cause harm to any animal. I'm not religiously vegetarian, but I don't see it as an ideology. I see it as a choice of not causing harm to living beings.
Stephen, I'm very familiar with that approach, and I agree with the intention of it strongly. What I want you to know is that in order to farm avocados, do you eat avocados?
Sometimes.
Okay, in order to farm avocados, you have to clear 40 acres of natural rainforest. You kill 10,000 animals clearing those 40 acres. Then you have to kill roughly 3,000 to 5,000 animals a year to keep them out of the avocados. You are never, as a human being living on this planet, you are never going to stop harming other animals. You can't. Do you drive a car? You kill millions of insects driving down the M5. Now, the issue that what I want to suggest is now there's another flawed version of this. I saw this vegan propaganda guy, and he was holding a baby sheep and a baby pig. And he's like, we don't want to harm these animals. If there was no animal husbandry, then there'd be two major problems. One is those animals would never have the chance to be born in the first place. So veganism at an ideological level is an attempt to stop animals from having the right to live in the first place, to make sure they are never born so that they don't have to die. I understand that. I understand it, but it's a complicated spiritual question, because is it really up to you? Like if we want to prevent death, then we should stop everybody from living, because everybody is going to die. So it's a very challenging ideological position to take, that it is better for life to not eat animals. And there's a further side of this with regard to the avocados, for example. Any monocrop farming, any farming that focuses on a single crop is disastrous for the environment. It is absolutely disastrous for the environment. It's destroying the cell health. It's killing the microbes. It's killing insects. It's terrible. And that's why we have soil depletion problems. So now what happens is we've got this popularization of monocrop farming, which is devastating to natural ecosystems and devastating to animals all over the world, and destroying the ecosystem. That means that they then have to move to the next place and destroy that one too. So the only farming that is effective for Earth, is called regenerative farming. And regenerative farming must duplicate as closely as possible natural ecosystems. And that means they have to involve animals. You can't avoid that. There must be animals involved in the farming process. So if there are no animals involved in the farming process, then there's going to be terrible nutritional depletion of the soil, and you're going to just have to move the farm to the next place. So when I say ideological, what I mean is that if you were fully vegan, you'd be in a very different health situation than you're in right now, because you supplement with animal products from time to time, and I assume maybe dairy products from time to time as well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so, and I'm really sorry to be this direct, Stephen. I'm just going to say this. Okay, dairy products are the most unconscionable, torturous, most disgusting product on the planet if you care about animal well-being. And I'm going to ask you, Stephen, if you have a choice of reincarnating, you have a choice. I'm God, and I've met you, and I go, Stephen, you did such a good job in the last life. You now get to reincarnate, and you get a choice. You're going to be living on this farm here in the west of England with the Joneses, and you have a choice. You can either be a dairy cow, or you can be a beef cow. Which one would you choose? It's a nice farm. They're very good to their animals. Which one would you want to be? You probably don't know enough necessarily to answer that. So I'm going to help you a little bit. If you're a beef cow living on a good farm, you're going to be living out on the pasture, chasing bumblebees, eating grass. You're going to live a relatively good life until one day you're harvested, which is an unfortunate day for you. If you're a dairy farm, you're going to be impregnated by, if you're lucky, a bull that you didn't choose. If you're lucky, it'll be a bull you didn't choose. If you're not lucky, you will be raped by a machine, and you will be impregnated by that machine. Your baby will then be taken away from you prematurely because we need to preserve the milk that you are producing. And that milk will then be stimulated by hormone production so that you continue to feel as though you should be breastfeeding for the rest of your life. You will be hooked up to a machine. 1 in 5 of you will have a 25% chance of developing mastitis, which is and it'll probably be antibiotic resistant at this point, which is a horribly painful condition that every time you are milked will rack you with pain. And you will live like that for the rest of your life until you too are euthanized at some point. So would you take dairy cow or beef cow?
I wouldn't take either. I don't.
I agree.
I don't eat meat at all, and I haven't eaten meat. I just don't. I never eat meat. I don't drink milk, and I haven't done for the last 30 years. I haven't drunk cow's milk. I do have some eggs sometimes, and occasionally some meat, some cheese. But I do hear your concern, and
I'm just trying to say we're living in a really complicated time where it is very ideological. Means I have a principle and I'm never going to violate that principle. No matter what I learn about that principle. We've seen this happening over the last couple of years. There used to be a very strong principle on the left political side, and that principle was my body, my choice. And we've seen in America, my body, my choice get pushed to the very limits in the last couple of weeks. Except what a lot of people don't realize is that my body, my choice was pushed to the limits by the governments for the last 2 years already. These principles are difficult. And all I'm saying is ideological means that, and it doesn't, I'm not saying this necessarily applies to you because you haven't been solidly ideological. You have supplemented with a little bit of fish here and there and a little bit of cheese here and there and what have you, and eggs, which means that you are not amino acid deficient, which means you have had healthy fats, you've had full complete proteins, and that's why you look great. You've probably done it really well. Ideologically, you should not have been having dairy products. Because if the ideology is to not let the animal suffer, they suffer way more making your cheese than they do becoming a steak. I can tell you right now, you should not have been having any fish. You shouldn't. And then ideologically, what would happen is you would be malnourished and you would have serious health consequences that would mean that your health had been sacrificed at the feet of your ideology. But you weren't ideological about it, which I think you said at the beginning.
No, I did. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does, Eric. Yeah, thank you very much. I won't.
Thank you.
I'll let somebody else come in. Yeah, thank you.
By the way, I think we'd all be doing really well to be as spry and full of energy and looking good at 73 years old. So I'm in.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
And thank you for raising an important question. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Jane, I'll come to you next. Add you to the spotlight.
Hi, Eric.
Hello, Jane.
It's a question about blood pressure. I'm 72. I'm started to get harassed by my surgery for my blood pressure figures on a regular basis. And I'm about to tell them where to go, quite honestly. But just out of interest, what is a healthy blood pressure range? Should I ever be worried about it? I took 4 readings in the space of 15 minutes last week, during which time I was trying my best to kind of go into a meditative state. And my highest reading was 144/80, and my lowest was 126/77, but it was going up and down a bit. It's like, I really don't want to get hung up on this, so I want to educate myself about what's healthy, what's normal.
Jane, I will put it like this. I won't give you your numbers because I'm not a doctor, and you have your age and your lifestyle and your weight and all that stuff to consider in what your ideal blood pressure should be. I will say this, that if your doctor is concerned about your blood pressure, you should be concerned about your blood pressure. But if your doctor seeks to solve your blood pressure problem with any other solution other than food, then you should probably, walk away from that. I don't believe it's something you should be handling medically at all. I think blood pressure is largely, unless there's an underlying medical condition, largely something that can be influenced heavily by your relationship with food. Now, the other side of this is that we've been convinced for a long time that salt is the problem. And salt is that, we've got to avoid the salt. And I want to suggest to you that there's a much more basic and simple problem, and that is carbohydrates. And I didn't say sugar, you notice, because if I say sugar, you'll just think I'm talking only about candy, and I'm talking about all carbohydrates. in nature, Jane, you would not have had the opportunity to eat carbohydrates every day. You would never had that opportunity. You wouldn't have. And in fact, frankly, if Dan and I went hunting and we brought back some mammoth, you would have eaten it full of mammoth and you wouldn't have bothered with carbohydrates. You just wouldn't have. Because, by the way, how many of you have noticed that if you eat a plate of pasta, you need another plate of pasta, but if you eat a slice of fish and broccoli, you're done? Has anybody noticed that? Right? It's because it's nutrient dense and it tells you you're full. Whereas when you eat carbohydrates, it stimulates your appetite and makes you want to eat more. And here's the trouble, is it increases your blood sugar and it causes sticky blood. Now, I wonder if your blood being slow, sticky, and sludgy might have an impact on blood pressure. I think probably.
I mean, I don't think for a moment that my doctor is concerned about my blood pressure. I think this is just, you know, please send out to all 500 of our patients who are over 70. You know, that's what that's about.
Yeah, it's about selling drugs.
I actually don't eat that many carbohydrates. I have, because I'm on a low FOD MAP, FODMAP diet, because I've got a lot of my digestive issues. But it's
so Jane, here's what I want to suggest.
Yeah.
When somebody tells me I don't eat a lot of carbohydrates, what they generally mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what they generally mean is I don't eat a lot of carbohydrates every day, but I do eat some every day.
Yes.
Okay.
I have porridge. I have oats for breakfast.
No.
Okay.
No, it's sugar. You're just eating a bowl of sugar. You're having dessert for breakfast. Your pancreas, you eat that oats and your pancreas goes into full gear and starts pumping insulin into you to break down the sugar you just ate. Now, I'm not saying you can never eat oats, but as a consistent, no, you're straining out you're straining your pancreas and you're causing a blood sugar problem. So no. What I'm saying to you is that humans evolved to go through seasons. And some of those seasons didn't have carbohydrates in them. And that's hard because, and this is the tough part, your gut bacteria, which changes in a few days, but it won't if you don't change something else. Your gut bacteria votes on your cravings. So if you eat porridge every day, guess what? Your gut bacteria starts going, I want that. And if you don't have it, then you get sulky and depressive. It's called low blood sugar, right? So it's like you get trapped on the loop. So what I want to suggest to you is that you want to have periods of time in your life where you don't eat carbs at all. I'm not saying you never eat them. I'm saying you want seasons where you don't. And I will tell you this, Jane, again, no medical advice here, but I will tell you that after about 3 years of running Wildfit, I had to include a medical disclaimer. And here was the medical disclaimer. The first one, we now also offer a bunch of them, but here it was. If you are on medication designed to lower your blood pressure, you must visit your doctor to have your prescription reviewed in week 6 or 7 of the program, because the combined efforts of this program and medication to lower your blood pressure will cause you dizziness or passing out. And that's how consistently changing somebody's relationship with food and the seasons lowers their blood pressure naturally and easily.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Eric.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Cool, thank you. So Seminar, you're the last from our panel. We've got one more in the chat and then we're at time. So I'm just going to add you up to the screen.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, my name is Samana. Hi.
Hello, Samana.
Oh my God, it's just amazing. I've read so much about what you're saying and trying to implement it, and it's just fantastic to hear you, a professional, say everything that I already believe and know. So thank you so much. Just anecdotally today, I was walking through Waterloo Station and there was these, those sales pictures. They were trying to sell vegan, those like HelloFresh things, but it was vegan. And I started chatting to the guy, this young guy. And I said, look, I was vegetarian for 15 years and my ex-husband was, and he got really ill because he didn't get enough B12. And now he has to have shots every few weeks because he didn't get enough B12 because there was no red meat or eggs. We didn't really eat much eggs. And this guy is advising passers-by. He didn't know about B12. He didn't know. He said, I said, you should be advising, telling people, if you're going to go on a vegan diet, you need to supplement with B12 and other things, many others. And he didn't know. And I thought, oh my God.
Yeah,
even the American Vegetarian Society,
The American Vegetarian Society on their website says, if you choose this lifestyle, you must supplement for, and B12 is one of the things that they acknowledge you need.
Massive. I mean, my ex-husband is so ill when he's getting depleted in B12. He's so ill, he has to go for shots. I think he has leaky gut as well. But anyway, my question is...
Oh, wait, Samana, I got to tell you something funny. So here's a weird irony, okay? It's a weird irony, but one of the symptoms of B12 deficiency is personality disorders, including aggression.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when somebody is low on B12, they develop aggression. Now, here's what's crazy about that. Ideological, not the Stevens of the world, but the ideological vegans, right? I don't know if you've ever bumped into them walking down the high street. They can be really rude and in your face. And the joke of it is that they're aggressive like that, often because they have B12 deficiency.
They're starving.
Now, but here's the crazy part. This is the irony. It's actually funny. Aggression is an evolved response to B12 deficiency because, Samana, imagine that Dan and Stephen and I, well, Stephen was just along, we were hunting. Stephen was just taking pictures. But Dan and I were out there hunting. And when we came back, we didn't share anything with you. We didn't share anything with you. Now, a week or two of this would go by, but eventually, as your B12 got lower, you would start becoming more aggressive to make sure you got your share of the B12. The irony of it is when somebody becomes ideological about not having any animal products, they run low on B12 and then they become objectionably aggressive about it.
Well, maybe that's why I'm not with him.
There you go. If only you'd had a steak. I don't know. Anyway, carry on. What's your question?
So my question is, it's really interesting you're talking about that ancestrally. So I'm Indian background, and I'm really interested to know if there should be consideration for people who are so my genetics are back in South Asia, and I know India is very vegetarian, which has nothing to do with what they should and shouldn't be eating. That's a different story. But I'm Punjabi, we eat a lot of meat in our culture. So should there be a consideration for people who
not
are
a great deal
parts of the world?
Not a great deal, and I'll explain why. First of all, India's moving toward vegetarianism is interesting. First of all, people have this idea that the country's like that. That's actually not true. It's the middle of the country.
It is.
The outside of the country is heavily into meat and fish and what have you, and that is where the healthiest people in India live. In the middle of the country, they have become one of the worst countries, period, in the world for diabetes and obesity.
Yeah.
And that largely is because of that move toward, basically, excessive amounts of carbohydrates in the form of rice and lentils and all that kind of stuff. Now, the reason that your let's say, sort of regional, let me put it this way. Humans have been in development for about 6 million years from an evolutionary perspective. I mean, one could argue much longer, but I mean, as upright, standing on our own 2 feet, Australopithecine, we're, say, a 6 million year old experiment. And if you take that 6 million year experiment and you then consider when the humans, for example, left Africa, most of that 6 million years took place in Africa. And so you and I are more genetically similar to each other than let's say a Norwegian salmon and a British Columbian salmon. You and I share more. We are very closely related. We are almost not different at all. And in fact, to give you an idea of this, chimpanzees and bonobos, which are basically the other 2 species of chimpanzees, we share so much DNA with them. And here's the joke of it. We share more DNA with the one chimpanzee than the other one does. Like we are, and by the way, what do chimpanzees eat? They eat a nearly perfect human diet. They're very similar to us. They are effective hunters. They eat meat. They eat seasonal available fruits and vegetables. They're so what will change with regional stuff like this is that it's entirely possible that rice is less damaging to you than it is to, say, a North American a native, because rice is much newer to them. But that doesn't mean rice is good for you.
But even with the arsenic in the rice,
there's that whole issue. But so what I'm getting at is that the the time of this sort of, let's call it, say, racial separation of human beings is very short. It's happened very recently, and it hasn't really affected us from a food perspective. So what that might mean is that we can see some areas of this where, say, Northern Europeans let's say Northern Europeans are better able at processing alcohol than tribal Africans are, or tribal Americans are. And that's because tribal Africans and Americans didn't have alcohol, and so they didn't build up the resistance to it. So there are some sensitivity, let's say allergy issues, but you require exactly the same 13 vitamins, 13 minerals, 9 amino acids, and all of the fats. You require the same ones that I do, that Sylvia does, that Stephen does, that Jane does, that Dan does. We are the same. Where we might be a little different is in what triggers us, in what is sensitive to us. A great example of this is that most of the people that are coming here with lighter skin come from Northern Europe. They are less likely to be lactose intolerant than, say, somebody that originates from Africa. The people that originate from Africa are far more likely to be lactose intolerant. 90% of them are lactose intolerant, whereas only 30% of Northern Europeans are. But that doesn't mean milk is good for any of them. It's not. It just means it's more harmful to some of them, if that makes sense.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah,
you're very welcome.
Amazing. Thank you.
Dan, if I may, oh yeah, you had another question from the chat.
Sure. I'll bring Eve up. It's our final question from the chat. Give me a second.
Okay.
Eve, let me come and find you, bring you onto the screen, disappeared.
Thank you.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we've got you.
I can.
Thank you. I'm a nutritionist, and I'm more confused about diet than anybody. And I've done every single diet. I've got two questions. One is sweet cravings after meals. What's the cause? And secondly, heritage wheat and sourdough is something I believe we've been eating for thousands of years. And I believe it's higher in protein and minerals. I just would like your comments on those, please.
Okay. The sweet craving that comes after food, Eve, is generally one of two things. One is that immediately after you've eaten the food, your body starts producing tons of insulin, and that insulin breaks down the sugars you've eaten, but it leaves you with low-grade insulin shock. And the only way to treat that low-grade insulin shock is to eat some sugar. So it creates the desire for dessert. The other reason for it is that your parents conditioned you that way. It's like, if you eat all your vegetables, you can have some dessert, as Pink Floyd explained to us, right? Like, so there's the habit of it, and then there's the biochemistry of it. You will find, however, that if you ever eat what we would call a Wildfit spring meal, let's say you ate a meal that was made up of a concentrated protein and maybe some green vegetables, but no carbohydrates, you are far less likely to have that sweet craving afterward, because you don't have a blood sugar problem. And so generally that's what's going on, is that I would say to you that when somebody has that sweet craving that's coming after a meal, it's because they are moving on to the diabetic scale. They are moving into pre-diabetic, because their body is calling out for sugar that's unnecessary. So I hope that answers that question. Now,
yes.
Now, Eve, let's talk a little bit about wheat. Yes, you could say that humans have been eating meat for thousands of years, but I want you to consider something. Do you even I'm gonna do an economic thing. So people often talk about millionaires and billionaires, like they're the same thing. Like millionaires and billionaires are the same. They are so not the same thing that the average person is more like a millionaire than a billionaire is like a millionaire is like a billionaire. Let me explain what I mean. If you have £1 million, okay, if you have £1 million and you spend 83,333 pounds a month, how long will it take you to burn through your £1 million? 1 year. 1 year. If you spend 80,000 pounds a month for 12 months, you will burn through your $1 million in 1 year. If you are a billionaire, it will take you 1,000 years to do that. Do you guys understand the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire now? I hope that now I want to point out to you that is the difference of 3 zeros. And you are also talking about a difference of 3 zeros, 10,000 years versus 6 million years. So one way to do this is that if we equate human history with a 60-year-old man, let's say, when did that 60-year-old man start eating wheat and grain? about 45 seconds ago. It is I know that in our brains, 1,000 years is like a long, long time, but it is not. In evolutionary terms, it is a very new thing. And I'll tell you something else, Eve, that dental caries, or cavities, as we call them, dental caries in scientific terminology, show up in the archaeological record consistently for the first time at the beginning of agriculture. And what was the primary initial crops of agriculture? Grain. Because that's when we first started experiencing malnutrition, because we started eating something that is fundamentally only sugar. And by the way, one more thing, Eve, can you imagine trying to eat grain without a grinder? I mean, can you imagine trying to eat? It would break your teeth. You did not evolve the capacity to eat grain. You can't. It would break your teeth. You need to grind it down. Now, let me describe what happens when you grind it down. The average piece of grain is a biochemical weapon. It is attempting to protect itself and become a grass. It wants to become a grass. It wants to become a blade of grass, wheat or whatever grass it is, right? So a bird comes along and eats it. It has a tough outer shell. The bird starts trying to digest that tough outer shell. It then releases some digestive enzyme blockers and hormone triggers and glutens and lectins that are designed to defeat the bird's digestive system. The bird, in the meantime, has been evolving for thousands and thousands of years to develop stronger and stronger digestion to beat the grain's digestive defenses. And this race has been going on for millions of years. And then humans thought, hell, we're going to jump into this race. Now, we can't do anything about the teeth that can't break the grains. So what we're going to do, and swallowing the grain whole doesn't seem to work, because then the grain just poops out the other side and we starve to death. So instead, we're going to take rocks and grind the grains up, which means that our body will be exposed to the full biochemical defense system of the grain in one mouthful. IBS, colitis, Crohn's disease, and the rest are amplified by or maybe even caused by that. So grains are not ideal. That said, Eve, if you're going to eat grains, those are the ones to eat from time to time, rarely as an exception. I will tell you that when I travel to Italy, I'm there with my girlfriend. My girlfriend wants to have a little wine and pizza, so I order one. Now, will I have cheese on it? No. And by the way, the Italians will tell you that that's an American thing anyway, so don't bother. So I will, but it's a thin crust pizza made with heirloom, with old original grains, not American. And don't get so proud in Britain, because especially now, this is not an anti-Brexit statement. It's just a statement of reality that when you left the EU, you left the protections of the EU food systems, and you are now adopting the American system, which is terrible. And it means that you're going to end up with a bunch of American grains. You don't want to eat those. So in short version, Eve, what I'm saying is grains are unnecessary. Mostly they're bad. And if you eat the right ones, you can eat them occasionally. Last thing on this, Eve, so exciting. You're a nutritionist.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was trying not to be ideological. I've actually had a book published on the paleo diet in 2014 and was a great proponent of it. But then I thought perhaps I'm being a little bit too ideological.
Eve, I'm going to say you opened up by saying you're a nutritionist and you're more confused now than ever. So I want to share two things with you, and I think it's a nice way to wrap up. Food science is an impossible science. I want you all to understand that. Stop reading the studies. It doesn't matter. Don't listen to the press. And I'm going to give you two examples why that's true. One is that a proper scientific experiment means controlling everything but one variable. So in order to find out if something is good or bad for people, you would have to make sure that 1,000 people ate exactly the same thing every day, except you changed one thing. Then you would be able to. That scientific study will never be done. It can't be done. It's impossible. Food science is fundamentally flawed because it can't be done properly. It's also flawed because it's bought and paid for. And I'm going to give you an example of that. The Daily Mail, some of you might be familiar with the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail has run two articles 1 year apart from each other. One said that eggs cause diabetes, and the other one said that eggs cure diabetes. I was really curious about how they got this information, Eve, so I looked into it. And here's the study that showed that eggs cause diabetes. I did something novel. First of all, the headline is a lie. The headline says eggs cause diabetes. Well, it turns out the study never said that. The study said that eating eggs raised blood sugar. That's also questionable, but raising blood sugar doesn't mean cause diabetes, but that's what the press does. They take one truth and they build a lie on top of it. So now I decided to go deeper than the story, and I went and read the actual study. Here's what the actual study said. In the study, what they found is that some people had their blood sugar raised when they're eating eggs. Weird, not diabetes, blood sugar. But then it said, and this is so interesting, it only happened to the women. Weird. Why would it only happen to the women? Then in the disclaimers, you know, studies have to have like conflict of interest and blah, blah, blah. And then there's disclaimers. It said, one thing to note is that the majority of the women in the study did not like the consistency or flavor of eggs, so they consumed their eggs as baked goods in the form of muffins, waffles, and pancakes. I wonder if that might have been the reason that they got their blood sugar rate. I mean, that is the nature of food science today. So here's a principle I can offer you. And Eve, if you've written about paleo, you're 90% the way there. Any food science or statistic that contravenes or does not agree with evolutionary history and biology must be questioned. Done. That's the way it is. If humans have not been eating it for thousands of years, at the minimum, you have to accept that it is not necessary. It doesn't mean it's automatically bad. Avocados seem to be good for us, but they're definitely not necessary. And if we start with that basic understanding that evolutionary biology is the guiding principle, then we don't need to read the articles on PubMed anymore. Instead, we should just watch more of the National Geographic Channel and learn more about nature. And Eve, I got a big lesson in this because my first baby boy was born in Bristol, and they sent the health visitor to the house, as they do in Britain. We don't do this in other countries, but they sent the health visitor to the house, who is, by the way, a trained nutritionist. Here's the sad thing. If you are a nutritionist in Canada, Britain, the United States these days, most of your education was funded, constructed, and paid for by the food industry. So you have that problem. And this woman was a nutritionist and a health visitor coming to visit the baby. She came and visited us. She asked us a bunch of questions about the baby. And then she said this to me: I'm a little bit concerned. I said, what, why? I'm concerned about your baby's iron intake. Yeah, I think you might be iron deficient. And I'm like, why? Are his eyes yellow? Like, what are the symptoms? What? And you know how parents are, right? Parents are cool, calm, and rational whenever you suggest their health of the baby. No, I was freaking the hell out. What do you mean? What are the symptoms? And she goes, well, actually, I don't see any symptoms at all. And I go, well, then why are you saying this to me? And she goes, well, because based on what the book says, and based on what you're telling me you feed your baby, you should have an iron problem. And I go, but wait a minute. What about the health of my baby? How do you feel about my baby? And the woman, I kid you not, Eve, she says this directly to me. She goes, actually, the truth of it is I've been doing this for 10 years, and this is the healthiest baby I have ever seen, ever in my career in health visits. And I go, so why are you telling me about this iron thing? She goes, it's because what the book says. And she goes, now that I say it out loud, I think the book might need to change. Then about 6 months later, she called me and she goes, I need to book another health visit. I'm like, oh, my son's in Canada. You can't do it. And she goes, I'm so sorry, because I wanted to come and talk to you about how we can change the book. So I want to say, Eve, I think that you definitely were on the right track. You're asking the right questions. The key to it all is human history and evolutionary biology.
Yeah, I think that too. Thank you very much for clarifying.
You are so welcome. This has been a true pleasure. And Dan, I just want to thank you for creating the space and bringing like people with real questions.
My pleasure. Eric, before you to the last question, it sounded like you wanted to add something else before we wrap up.
I just wanted to say, like, I didn't come here with the intention of recruiting a bunch of you or selling or anything. I just want to tell you that if any of you are curious about the work that we do, you want to revisit your relationship with food, you want to understand seasonal fluctuation, we run the most awesome 90-day health transformation program, and you can do it anytime you want, no pressure. The only thing I was going to say is that about once a year, I personally host a class for a large group, and we've got one starting on August 8th. So if any of you guys want to do that, we can give you the link for it. I don't know, Dan, did my team give you a link for that by any chance? Or?
Yes. So we can go to danastingregory.com/wildfit, and I'll put that in the chat for you.
Yeah. And guys, let me tell you a little bit about the way that would work, just so you know. The first thing is it is not a diet, it is lifestyle revision. There is absolutely no question that within 2 weeks, you will know that your life will never be the same again. I can tell you that. I've done this for 50,000 people. The Canadian government summoned me. I'm not kidding you. The Canadian government summoned me to the Senate to get a medal and for the work that I'm doing. In fact, this is a horrible side story related to that. Is shortly after that, I was approached by a parliamentary consultant in the United Kingdom asking me if I could help Boris Johnson deal with this obesity epidemic that's happening in the UK. and frankly, his own personal obesity epidemic. And so they asked me to draft a letter making a proposal to come and help them do this. I worked with a senator in Canada who got me and we drafted a letter, and the consultant called me and said, the letter is on his desk in 10 Downing Street. It's in his hands now. And about a week later, he announced his campaign to bicycle away his fat. You cannot outbike your fat. You cannot outrun your fat. And I want you to know this, that the idea that you can exercise your calories away is an idea that was invented by the soft drink industry in order to get people to buy more calories. It's a disgusting lie, and it can't be done that way. So what we're going to work on over the course of a very carefully constructed 3-month process is food psychology, the foundations of, look, your parents did some stuff that got you eating. Right now, some of you do things like this. You've had a bad day, you turn to ice cream or chocolate. Somebody hurts your feelings, you need a glass of wine. And you think that's an adult way of living. It isn't. It's because when you fell down and skinned your knee, your parents gave you a cookie and a hug, and you suddenly learned that injury can be solved with sugar and cuddles, right? And so we go through a process of helping you deframe those beliefs and change those behaviors. Then we go through an incremental process of improving your nutrition over the space of 90 days. And I guarantee you, it will absolutely change your quality of life far beyond just your health. It will impact every area of your life. So that starts on August 8th. There's daily videos for the first 2 weeks, and then weekly videos on Mondays and Fridays for the next 9 weeks after that, and then daily videos again in week 13 to make sure that everything you learned stays with you so that your lifestyle is changed forever. I will tell you one last thing about it. Willpower. It's not about that. It's not about you being good. The average person, this was in the Telegraph a few weeks ago, the average person will undertake 126 diets in their lifetime, and they will stick with each one for about 6 days. And they will gain 3 pounds every time they do it. So let me give you some other statistics. Since we've launched our program, 85% of people who start finish. 85%. They go all the way through and they finish and they get the results. So I would love to spend that 3 months with any of you guys that are interested in taking your health to another level. And Dan, I want to thank you for creating the space for me to come here and share with everybody. It's been a real treat and a pleasure.
My pleasure. I want to thank everyone for your participation. Thank you firstly to Eric for your time and wisdom this evening, and such passion and energy with every one of your answers. So much, really, really appreciated. And thank you for some fantastic questions and discussion this evening. I recorded a video in advance of tonight's session saying that I always come away knowing that I wish we had even more people in the room with us tonight. So if you've enjoyed tonight's session, please help us spread the word about what we're doing at Elevate. We've had all of these monthly classes. We're driving this forward into the future. So if you're enjoying these types of sessions, please help us share what we're doing here. You know, we want to take what we've been doing on the pandemic podcast, uncovering all the big issues, to actually now help find practical solutions that we can either implement on an individual level or on a societal level to make a difference around us. So your participation is key to help us keep going. And we really value each one of you being here tonight. So for Eric's class on the 8th of August, you can go to danastingregory.com/wildfit. The links are in the chat. We'll also include those links in the event recap after today's session. If you're new here to Elevate, welcome. Please do have a look around the Elevate platform and familiarize yourself. We're back next week for our next live event with Professor Matthias Desmet. Matthias was our highest ranking podcast episode of all time, had well over 1 million views. It's been featured all around the world, and he's joining us here next Tuesday evening for a discussion around the psychology of totalitarianism. Slightly different subject to Eric's conversation tonight on health freedom, but we will talk about personal freedom in the context of our session. We're right at time now. Thank you so much again to Eric. Please unmute yourself and help us in giving us a round of applause to Eric. Thank you for checking out this special Q&A session today with Eric Edmeades. I hope you found it as insightful and fascinating as I did, and got some takeaways that you can apply to your own health and your own food decisions. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we hold these frequently within our Elevate network, within the supporters circle, for our members of our supporters program. If you'd like to be in the room with us, head over to weareelevate.org and sign up for our supporter program on one of our plans. And you can join the supporters circle and sign up to our forthcoming events, we've got a Q&A with Mattias Desmet, Professor Mattias Desmet, who's the author of The Psychology of Totalitarianism. He spoke recently and prolifically throughout the pandemic on the concept of mass formation. Our episode with Mattias had well over 1 million views. That's going to be an absolute packed house when we have Mattias. We've got a conversation with Helena Norborg-Hodge coming up in August, and we've also got a deep dive on crypto and the financial reset coming up within the month of July. So some amazing events coming up. Head over to weareelevate.org, join our supporter program, and you can be in the room with us for our next session. Thanks again for watching, and look forward to seeing you on our next Q&A session and deep dive within the Elevate Network.